everyone to the Realty Debate of this week. Today we will focus on our attention on an important source of funding for the real estate sector, that's private equity or PE funding. In 2011, real estate topped amongst the sectors which received PE funding in the country. In 2012, the picture is looking grim. The deal sizes have changed, the deal structures have changed, and the player's profile is also changing. So, PE investments in real estate, the changing face, is what we will get deep into. And as always, we also have a consumer-focused discussion. We've been getting questions from many of you on the merits and pitfalls of investing in commercial real estate. In the second half of the debate today, we'll get you the landscape of commercial real estate across India and run you through the basic do's and don'ts of commercial real estate investing. Let's begin the debate on PE funding for real estate sector with our panelists, Sunil Rohokale, MD and CEO of ASK Group. Also, for a developer's perspective, Sunil Mantri, Chairman, Sunil Mantri Group. Om Chaudhary, CEO Fire Capital Fund in our Delhi studio. And Sameer Jasuja, CEO and founder of Prop Equity. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining me here today. I'm going to just read out a couple of graphics which basically tell you the data points on what we're going to be talking about. Now, if you look at 2011, we came out of the subprime crisis and the numbers looked good. PE investments, $2.68 billion of real estate investments through 53 transactions. Real estate attracted the largest PE funding amongst all sectors across the country. In 2012, what's the picture looking like? It's looking shaky. Private equity real estate firms made 12 investments amounting to about $477 million across 10 deals. These were the disclosed values during the quarter ending March 2012. The pace of investments, and this is an important one to see, during the quarter was less than half of that during the same period last year, which actually saw 28 investments in 2011, same quarter. Look at this number, $1,523 million being invested across 26 deals with disclosed values. This was January to March. Investments are also lower compared to the immediate previous quarter, which saw a closure of 18 deals. In fact, if you look at the private equity real estate investment volumes, they have decelerated for the fourth consecutive quarter, that's Q1 12. So I'm going to first, of course, ask Om this question. What's going on, Om? I mean, we look like we just come out of the subprime crisis. Real estate looked very good if you looked at PE investments in 2011.
No, real estate, I would say, Manisha, continues to look good. It's just, it's everything relative. So you look back, at the heady days of 2006 through 2009, and even in 2012, 11, like you said, we came out of the crisis looking good because of nothing else but belief in the Indian economy and belief in the fundamentals of real estate, particularly residential. Now, the commercial side of real estate is starting to look a little, impacted by the cyclicality, but residential continues to look good. So that's what has kind of held Indian real estate through. We shouldn't forget that private equity opened up for the real estate sector. Real estate was the most closely guarded bastion only in 2005, and 2006 is when funds actually started, and we saw a deluge in a sense.
Figures are saying that $5 billion is ready to exit in 2012.
Yes,
that's the basic figure which is floating around.
That is the figure that ought to exit because it's kind of the math is done on what monies came in, what IRRs are expected, and therefore 2012-13 what amount of.
So as a PE investor, you're saying that it still looks attractive. The sector's looking attractive. The numbers aren't telling an entire story then, because 2012 beginning, the slowdown that you see. So I'm going to come back to you. Let me just get Mr. Rohokale's opinion here. Mr. Rohokale, I mean, has the environment itself has changed. Though if you look at the January to March quarter, today we look at the environment and say, look, Eurozone's looking shaky. There are problems with the Indian economy. But January to March, you actually saw Indian equity markets notch up 12%. It was a very, very good period. And there was a little bit of robustness and positivity in the air. Why are the numbers in real estate looking so grim at the beginning of this year?
Yeah, I think real estate attractiveness remains intact. But I think the important aspect is that for the private equity real estate, the fundraising has to happen, which is domestically as well as internationally. I think whatever dry powder the industry had since 2005, 6, 7 and 8 got completely dried up due to investments into various segments of real estate and different cities and different geographies in the country. So I think if you really look at the fundraising program post the global crisis by the domestic funds, to my mathematics, it's not crossing even $1.5 billion. And at the same period, if you look at the private equity players who raised money globally for Indian real estate is not even crossing $1 billion. So I think the total quantum of money available with private equity players to be deployed, even though opportunity is great, is actually a big question mark. That's first aspect. The second aspect is, I think, the risk involved into Indian real estate and the perceived returns. I think there is amount of agreement yet to happen. Even though the sales are slow, even though the banks are also charging a higher risk premium for the real estate lending, and same is the story with NBFCs lending to real estate industry. I think private equity as an instrument and private equity as a vehicle for a growth or deleveraging, I think, and returning the risk-adjusted returns to the private equity is yet not completely established to my mind, so that it becomes little wider and deeper.
Mr. Mantri, you're the one who really gets affected by the entire sources of fund story. I mean, whether it's banks, which already have been told by RBI charge a higher premium because this is a risky sector to invest in, private equity or even NBFC. So sum up for us the environment that you see on private equity investments into your sector. Are the deals coming, but they're coming far more stringently structured because of the high risks perceived?
Yes, I think we were having great hopes on private equity players that huge quantum of the money will come at a reasonable cost. Unfortunately, the expectation of the private equity player for getting the return on the investments are very, very high. They expect sometime 25% to 30% rate of the return, which is very, very high. That's the first problem. Secondly, really they don't invest in the risk of the company. That's an equity investment, which the government of India or the Reserve Bank was contemplating, that whenever the foreign player is investing in the company, he's sharing the risk as well as sharing the benefits of the fruits of the benefit if anything is happening. I think most of the private equity deal which currently are happening, they are more or less structured deal where the fixed ROI, return on the investment, is fixed, irrespective whether developer makes profit or not. A time frame is given, which is also a very short. Usually they expect 3-year exit, which is very difficult in most of the time in the real estate sector. So that's the second problem. Third, they need all the permits to be in place by the time actually you can start the project. That time they want to enter. So you have a big question: who will invest for the land money, who will invest for the premiums payment to the municipal corporation or the state government. So technically, by the time you are ready to start the project, that time they want to enter really doesn't help the developer to complete the project, because then developer prefers to go for a bank funding option, which is currently available between 13 to 15% price tag, and NBFC option, which is available between 17-18% to 20 or 22% price tag.
You pretty much said all the questions that I would have wanted to ask the people on the panel who are representing the PE business. I mean, yes, they all are very gung-ho, but on what terms? And Mr. Mantri said, assured returns of 25%. Equity deals ain't happening. All of them have options built in. They're structured deals. Even if the government says no structured deals, they're happening. We all know of that. They want a 3-year exit, which in real estate is unheard of. Lots and lots of stringencies attached to that money which is coming in. And the reason, Samir, according to me, why 2011 saw the highest amount of PE money flowing into real estate is because real estate was so starved of money. They were meeting all these conditions and saying, just give it to us, we'll go ahead still, isn't it?
I absolutely agree with you. Mr. Mantri is absolutely right. The expectations of private equity, and I don't blame them at all, is 25% post-tax returns, and that's primarily because there are many risks attached to investing in Indian real estate sector. That's the first part. Second part is I don't think the Indian real estate story is intact at all. I think from a private equity point of view, it's diminishing. And it's quite complicated, actually.
It's when you say real estate story is not intact at all, you mean for the investors?
From a private equity perspective.
I'm going to just tell you another reason why the risks have gone up for private equity investments in real estate. Now, exits. There's a policy row. Foreign PE exit of around $5 billion, as we mentioned, has been planned for 2012. This is money which should mature and go out of the country. Now, exit of deals with options is a question mark right now. Compulsorily convertible debentures and compulsorily convertible preference shares are amongst the instruments through which foreigners invest in Indian real estate firms. Although these are required to be converted into equity within a specified period of time, at the time of conversion, what really happens is Indian promoters often use the put options, letting foreign investors exit. Now, this, of course, is a big thing as well, that, what do you do on an exit at this point of time? I mean, what sort of monies or what sort of deals have you structured in the past? Do you have these options built in your structures as well, and you would have a problem in exiting?
Fortunately for us, and
And you're saying fortunate, you got lucky there.
3 years back or 4 years back, everyone in the shop used to say we're doing very boring stuff, right? Because we went by the letter and spirit of FDI in real estate, which was only equity. So across everything that we've done, it's 100% equity. However boring it might have seemed then, in hindsight, it seems all good because, you can at least
exit
without any questions asked.
Yes.
Hopefully, right? And, we've kind of been doing that for a while now because we have invested, like I said, as pure equity.
So you've invested pure equity, got away with it in terms of, just the right way that you invested, took the risk.
Pull money out as dividend and...
But what's happening? I mean, do you think that monies in real estate will come now when it's not willing to take the risks and it's mostly going to be structured? I mean, what happens from now on?
I think what happens, Manisha, as always in life, water finds its level. And like you rightly said, the private equity players are taking a look. The risk-reward profile has changed. They have their own experience, the experience of others to look back on. Fortunately or unfortunately, back in 2006, it was a clean slate. So everything was off an Excel spreadsheet.
Right.
And you were only looking ahead.
But now you have concrete examples on how much money can you really make and how can you make money and which company should you go with, what kind of project.
Like Samir was saying, there were various verticals.
That's more important.
How much money can you lose? So that's it. With headwinds on every count, I mean, if you look at it, domestic, global, bank funding looking tougher for real estate, the industry per se going through its own turmoils. Look at the index. The real estate index is down 70% from its peak. PE investments continue to remain a big source of funding, but how do we make sure that private equity investment taps don't run dry? That's what we're discussing. We'll be right back. Emerged as the popular sector for private equity funds who invested about $1,700 million in this sector during 2011. This is according to CII's India Brand Equity Foundation. But is the interest now fizzling out? Our panelists say absolutely no. The sector is still looking extremely attractive, especially residential real estate in the country. This is Sunil Mantri. I'd like to get your viewpoint here. So you said, yes, the monies are coming, but they're extremely stringent, the conditions which are thrusted on developers. So to what level is the fund crunch in real estate driving developers to accept these stringent conditions? And then Samir Jasuja says that it's not about making money. There are lots of private equity deals which have gone sour, real estate as well. People have lost money.
Basically, there is a huge liquidity shortage or a crunch, you can say, in the real estate sector. As you know, the buyers are very cautious while putting the money into realty sector, and the rate of the interest and liquidity crunch or overall slow growth, I think, is the reason for impact. Secondly, all the nationalized bank or a private sector bank are very reluctant to lend to realty sector. The advances coming to this sectors have absolutely dried up. Very small money is coming to this sector, and again that is coming for the development purpose. So there is zero money available for buying the land or paying the huge premiums like a city of the Mumbai, where the fungible FSI new concept has come, wherein every bank is asking that developer should contribute the money from his own kitty, like at par with a land payment. So third option available to the developer is NBFC. I think that sector is also very expensive and money is dried up. The fourth one option was available to the developer to raise through money through capital market or the bonds. I think last 1 or 2 years, you must have noticed there are no IPOs in the real estate sector, and whoever has launched is available at a heavy discount. So this option is almost vanished, or you can't count it.
So you're saying you don't have an option but to agree to all those stringent conditions that the PE firms actually levy on you?
Probably, because if the money you need it to complete the project or complete the land deal or keep on your commitment, and probably you need to accept the stringent condition laid down by a private equity player, maybe the post IRR return, tax IRR return, a fixed IRR return, or their time of the entering, time of the exit. I think all those conditions or interfering in the company policy, you need to accept if the money is a big requirement for any industrial house or a business house.
If you meet all the stringent conditions, is then the money coming, or even then it's very difficult to get a deal through, Mr. Mantri?
Even though it is difficult, because please appreciate their choice first, the top choice, 80% of the deals are happening for the residential projects only, where the exit is guaranteed. And PE fund can rely, yes, if we invest in the money and we can, within a time bound, we can exit it. There are no private equity deals available at an entity level or an IT project or an office project or the retail project. There is absolutely no money available. And remember, I think there are a large number of the deals available for the reasons what I have mentioned previously. To the private equity player, they are extremely choosy which company, which brand, which project, which location. So luckily, the money is able to commit its condition as on today.
Okay, so one is that it's PE firms which are calling the shots today. That's very, very clearly established through the panel. Look at the changing face now, but overall as well, funds are opting to spread their risks, invest in smaller deals. The deal sizes have gone down substantially, and I'm going to corroborate that with Mr. Rohakale as well. It's mostly domestic funds deploying smaller amounts of money. What's happened? Why have the foreign funds gone out of the market or are leaving the market? Average deal sizes have reduced to about 75 to 100 crore rupees vis-a-vis 150 crore, which was earlier. And this is why we are saying that it's all's not really well at this moment. There's an overhang of underperformance in several funds. That's the inside story. There's focus now in PE firms as well on recovery rather than gains. So they're even now struggling, which is the point that Sameer Jasuja made. Rupees depreciation has added to the low dollar returns. I mean, look at the way rupees depreciated from its peak. It's down about 30% plus. So that's the absolute knockoff from any returns that the PE firms make. Mr. Rohakale, would you agree with all the points outlined? Deal sizes are getting smaller, risks are getting spread wider. It's mostly domestic PE funds which are looking at real estate more closely rather than foreign money flowing into it?
Okay, I would like to step back for a minute because the real estate canvas of this country looks very, very attractive on a demand-supply side because of the whole demographic dividend this country is reaping right now. So I think on any of these demographic details, this asset class like residential, commercial, office buildings, IT buildings, SEZs look attractive. The biggest challenge probably Indian real estate have seen is the execution. Stepping back for a minute and understanding that what is the execution risk. I think earlier the fund managers have gone into longer gestation projects, which are typically 100-acre townships or SEZs or hotel projects or IT parks or office buildings and large 100-acre townships. I think these projects do take a lot of time, and historically it is proven that in our country these projects do need 15 to 20 years to really fully complete it and hand it over to the end customers. which probably is the learning of a private equity industry as well as the developers, that the skill set required to execute the projects needs technology of construction, you need an integrated approach, and I think probably the private equity industry at this point in time is looking at a project which can be executable within 3 to 5 years time, which is typically a life cycle of a project, because the private equity funds.
Okay. Hold your thought. You're saying 3 to 5 years. Now that's another very, very big question. Where in India do real estate projects get completed in 3 to 5 years?
Particularly those, which are FDI
I mean, sure,
compliant.
you want to put your money behind projects which are executable in 3 to 5 years, but I'd really like to see some examples of that happening.
No,
even in residential, it's not a norm, it's an exception.
Yeah, there are challenges, but I think going back to the larger discussion here
deep down, are you a little more shaky investing now in real estate than you were at the beginning of 2011? That's also a big question.
I would say I'm pretty much in the same place. It's not that the last year or so has either increased or decreased the level of confidence, but having said that, there is this issue of execution, and like I was saying earlier, it's a two-way street. So when money comes in, it has to go back out, and that going back out and getting those returns, and we could talk about percentages, the minimum IRRs, etc., but if it comes 7,000 miles away from its source, it is looking to make a healthy return.
Right. And the rupee.
And the rupee, right? And that return has to be seen in the context of dollars in and dollars out, not what kind of IRRs you make in in rupee terms. So from that perspective, the last 3 months or 6 months haven't really helped, in terms of the high inflation rates here.
Right.
Cost of construction has gone down, and whatever profits you're making, when you're repatriating them, you're shaving off 10, 15, 20% off what you had projected. So that's not helping.
So it's not the industry per se, but you're saying the headwinds around the industry have now become a bigger factor for you to consider in terms of your returns. Sameer, sum up for us. I mean, we've heard both sides of the story, PE firms calling their shots, but they have probably a raison d'etre to call those shots because they've seen a lot of losses, not just made money. But how's the climate looking now? You said there's really no reason why they should be investing in Indian real estate.
So just to corroborate that, 150 to 200 private equity funds came into the country. Today, not more than 20 of them are active. Right? That's an important point.
So only 20 active left.
90% of them are in asset management mode or exit mode. They're trying desperately to raise foreign capital, but they're not succeeding. Why? Because there are a lot of execution risks, a lot of international risks with respect to dollar and Eurozone crisis and so on and so forth. But I think at these dollar prices, I think there's an exciting opportunity that India has with respect to real estate, especially on the residential side, and with the values tapering down going forward, I think there is an opportunity, but at this point in time, situation is not that good.
Situation not looking very good when it comes to private equity investments in real estate in India. So that doesn't bode very good, though both the PE guys are saying that nothing's changed. Yes, the macro headwinds have made the returns possibility a little more shaky, but overall, when it comes to the sector per se, they're not very worried. We'll see how the entire year pans out. The numbers of the first quarter 2012 PE investments in real estate aren't looking very encouraging, but we still have another 7 months to go. When we come back, commercial real estate, does it make sense for you to invest in it or not? Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining me on this show today. Mr. Mantri, Mr. Rohakale, Om and Sameer, thanks very much. Very interesting debate. We come back and look at commercial real estate as an investment opportunity. So I'm wondering if it doesn't make sense for PE investors to look at that space, should it for you and me? Thanks for joining us on the Realty Debate. This debate is all about investing in property. Should you continue to invest in residential land, plots, apartments and homes? The most obvious choice Or does commercial real estate or office space also merit a close look and could make for a great investment opportunity? Today on the show, investing in commercial property outlook and do's and don'ts is what we'll focus on. Mitesh Agarwal, Vice President Real Estate NV Capital, is one of our panelists. Also joined by Ravi Ahuja, Executive Director Cushman & Wakefield, Chirag Ramakrishna, CEO Equinox Realty, and we have Shailendra Singh, Managing Partner, Goodwill Coordinators from our Hyderabad studio. Sameer Jasuja, always with his differing and disruptive, I could say, almost point of view on any debate topic. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining me here. I'm really going to stay away from data points for the moment. And Ravi, straight away, you've got your fingers deep into commercial real estate across the country. Tell us, how's that market looking right now?
The commercial markets are looking steady. We're currently looking at various cities. Corporate demand in the commercial space has been looking up. There has been some pent-up demand over the period of last 2-3 years. In terms of the asset classes, when we talk about commercial activity, it is driven essentially by actual users who purchase or by lessees who are corporate users. In the leasing space, the kind of demand we're witnessing in cities like Bangalore or even in the CBD and off-CBD locations is really perking up. On the other hand, we're seeing over-excess supply in the IT and the SEZ space shaping up in few cities. Commercial real estate demand, again, can be categorized by way of either corporate offices, which are predominantly driven by markets like Mumbai and NCR, which is the National Capital Region of Delhi, Gurgaon, and the IT-ITES space, which comprises of mainly all the other cities, which includes Pune, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and now even Kolkata. Right. IT-ITES spaces comprise of almost 80-85% of the demand, the office space segment in India.
So you're saying that it's looking stable right now and there is some pent-up demand. So let me just read out a couple of data points. I mean, this is a report which was released by CB Richard Ellis, which we did use some time back. And this is what it says. January to March 2012, it just says office space demand slowed down significantly in first quarter. 4.3 million square feet of office space absorbed. 6.5 million square feet was absorbed in the previous quarter. Supply continued to overtake demand in Q1 of 2012, and accumulation of stock led to decline in rental values. Most office destinations are going to witness strong supply. IT-SEZ segment might lose its attractiveness. NCR, Mumbai, Chennai and Bangalore absorb more than 70% of space, but that's really a data point in terms of in the country, these are the cities which actually absorb 70%. Chirag Ramakrishnan, tell me what's your own point of view? I mean, I rarely find a consultant come out and say, look, this market is looking in fact dull. And I remember very clearly JLL expert making a point last October or November saying, this is the rock bottom of commercial real estate. This is a great time to invest in commercial office real estate.
See, the way I see it, the commercial market is ready for an upswing, especially in the cities of Mumbai and Bangalore. The reason I'm saying this is that the supply overhang in Mumbai and Bangalore seems to be reducing dramatically. Yes, JLL did come out and say last year that the prices are rock bottom and this is the right time to take it. And but what the good thing is, they went and started advising all the builders not to build commercial as well. So when they didn't build commercial and they just built residential, the fact is that there's no fresh commercial stock come in the market, at least in these two prime markets of Mumbai and NCR, for the last 12, maybe 24 months. And typically commercial takes a 36-month lag or a 48-month lag to come into the market. So when you look at it that way, and the stock with the values having bottomed out as early as 11, I feel, and what we're witnessing in the last 2 quarters as a landlord ourselves, is that there's an uptick in both volume offtake and prices have stabilized at least 20-30% higher than what they were a year back. So this is a very clear indication that in the months to come, prime markets, and I think CBRE's data is a case in point that you pointed out, that the prime 4 markets, there is huge supply offtake that is happening. Now one can say in perspective to 2008, it was lower. One can say that some markets have got a larger commercial space. But I genuinely feel that the commercial segment is offering a great opportunity to investors.
Okay, so great opportunity to invest. I will go to Chirag because then we go into Hyderabad market. But Mitesh, what's your quick take on it? Both panelists saying commercial real estate, no worries as of now, pan-India looking all right as an investment opportunity.
I actually agree with the analysis. If you see for most locations in, let's say, places like Bombay, the capital values for commercial are actually 60% of comparable projects and location of residential. That's a clear-cut indicator that it's a good opportunity to invest. If you look at the rental yields, you would get 9 to 11% on the office side, whereas on the residential side, you would get rental yields of only 3 to 4%. Even in terms of opportunities from the developer side, I think developers are more stressed on the commercial side because they need a lot of debt, a lot of capital funding to build those assets. Therefore, typically they would have more debt on the office assets, and that's where, better opportunities are available rather than residential. So I would actually agree with the panel.
Okay, so agree that commercial is looking really decent, especially on rental values and rental returns that you can get. What's your point of view, Shailendra? I mean, Hyderabad is actually a peculiar market. It has a huge amount of supply as well. But give us Hyderabad perspective and a national perspective. Are you differing from the rest of the panel, at least for the Hyderabad market?
I think Hyderabad is a fantastic market right now. It's an extended honeymoon due to some issues which are unique to Hyderabad, the political scene. We never got up from the recession. So I think today, when you say bottomed out, this is the bottomed out market as compared to all other cities in India. I mean, look at the infrastructure in Hyderabad, look at the IT industry which are in Hyderabad, look at the extent of growth in all directions in Hyderabad. I think it's a very good opportunity for large investors who are looking to buy a commercial building or an IT park or a large floor plate. But it's even good news for small investors who were till now only exposed to residential investment of say 1.5, 2 crores, because there were no options in the market for small office spaces. So today in Hyderabad, some developers have shifted from the herd mentality and got into small office space segment, which has a great demand from end users, from investors who are getting only 3-4% return in residential, but now they have an opportunity to earn 10-11% in smaller office segment. And also for an end user who was in a smaller building before, in an old building, could only graduate to a smaller new building. But today he has an opportunity to be a part of a large corporate building.
Right. Okay.
Which is, and the capital values are around 4-4.5 thousand per SFT for a warm shell.
Wow, those are actually prices which are unheard of in the rest of the Indian market. But hold your thought there, Shailendra. I'm just going to go through some of the prop equity data points to show what happened in the commercial real estate market. Now, all of India gave negative rental yields in 2009. That figure changed to positive for Bangalore in 2010 itself. Rest of the key markets like Bangalore, actually Chennai, etc., continue to give negative returns. This trend changed for positive for Whitefield and Bangalore specifically. Remain negative for other key markets of Bangalore, Mumbai, Gurgaon and Noida. In 2011, what happened? Most markets saw recovery led by Bangalore, Whitefield and Electronic City. So again, Bangalore topping the list here. Noida and Goregaon also turned into positive. Rental yields are actually now looking positive if you look at the entire markets in this data point in 2012. So that pretty much corroborates the point that first quarter of March 2012 hasn't been that bad.
Well, from an absorption point of view, it hasn't been that good either with respect to the past performance of commercial. If you look at from a rental yield perspective, the rentals were at rock bottom low, so they had to come up. Plus, there was no new supply coming up into the market. But, it's very important that if you look at from an investment point of view, commercial real estate, from an institutional point of view, it's a very good time to invest. You're getting great deals because large developers don't have that kind of capital to build commercial assets out. But from an individual investor point of view, I think if he only wants a rental yield, that's the only time you should look at investing in commercial. Otherwise, residential is a much more safer safer bet from an appreciation standpoint.
From a capital appreciation. So that's a more important point to look at. You separate capital appreciation, you separate rental yields, and if it's only capital appreciation, then residential wins over commercial any day.
Hands down, and that's why rental yields in residential are 2 to 3%. More importantly, you have to really understand the commercial market before investing. Demand, supply, inventory overhang are essential for you not to make any mistakes with respect to investing in commercial. So that is key. And when we talk about cities, I think we have to be also micro market focused. BKC is doing exceedingly well in Mumbai, but Nariman Point rents have crashed. They've come down from 250 rupees to 150 rupees odd. If you look at Gurgaon rentals are doing well, but Delhi rentals are coming down because there's no demand, because corporate demand is shifted to Gurgaon. So it's very important when you look at cities, and especially with respect to commercial, you look at key micro markets when you make commercial investment decisions.
All right, we'll be back to discuss how you should actually zero in on a good commercial real estate property for the medium to long term, even for capital appreciation. And we are also going to look at something else, how guaranteed return schemes work in commercial real estate, or do they work at all or not? Investing in commercial real estate in India, is it more profitable than investing in residential property? And what are the do's and don'ts of investing in commercial space are some of the key questions we are thrashing out in our debate today. Mitesh, we spoke about taking a very close look at the micro market. What's driving that micro market before you dip in? Shailendra said Hyderabad's looking very, very good right now in terms of investing, even for small investors. Spread out the Mumbai market for us, and what would you say? Where would you actually go and buy commercial real estate in the Mumbai market?
Yeah, Mumbai market is actually quite interesting at this point in time. You have like Samir pointed out, the old CBD Nariman Point areas where the demand is actually diminishing because lack of infrastructure, lack of car parking, smaller floor plates. Therefore, the demand is actually moving on to the Lower Parel area as well as the new CBD, which is Bandra Kurla complex. And that's where you'll find interesting opportunities. Lower Parel, today is a case in point where there's a lot of supply, a lot of opportunities available for investment as well as for leasing, and therefore the values today are actually quite low in relation to residential in the same locality or in relation to the past capital values. And so Lower Parel is an interesting area to look at. Then Mumbai is actually spread out quite a lot in terms of office development, so it has spread out to the western suburbs in terms of Andheri and areas beyond that, as well as on the eastern side in terms of Vikhroli and Thane. That's where capital values are quite low in relation to South Mumbai, and that's again where IT, ITS, and other lot of industries find space quite affordable if they're not able to afford, let's say, space in South Mumbai. So one can really take their pick. If one is looking at very high end end use in terms of banking, financial services, they would come into BKC, whereas if it is cost conscious corporate or a business, it would have to move to a place like a Thane or the western suburbs.
Ravi Ahuja, map out the entire India market for us. I mean, if you look at the cities which have done extremely well in the last 3-4 quarters, Bangalore is pretty much topping the demand or the absorption of commercial real estate and office space. Is this trend likely to continue? You hear of a lot of businesses even moving to Chennai market. So Hyderabad has the low pricing going for it. You've got Bangalore and Chennai, new businesses coming up in those cities as well.
Yeah, when you map out the entire Indian market, Bangalore comes out tops in the sense that Bangalore has seen year-on-year demand and absorption of over 10 to 12 million square feet. Again, when we talk about the overhang in supply, Bangalore actually has negative supply there. Bangalore has essentially now moved from a speculative market in terms of development to a build-to-suit more so. Corporates demand, they pre-plan exits, they pre-plan the growth they want to do, and these are essentially the Fortune 100 outsourced type of companies who are in the IT, ITES space. Bangalore has very restricted supply as of now. We've seen investment yields in Bangalore for pre-leased assets go as high as 13 to 13.5%. Now that's a great market for investors. The second and third facilities of these large corporations essentially spill over to markets such as Chennai, Hyderabad, and Pune. Chennai has seen some good demand of close to 6 million square feet. When we talk about Hyderabad, it's close to 4 million. Pune is about 3 million square feet. Overall, I think India has seen in 2011 a demand of 35 million odd square feet, and this year the supply is going to range between 50 million. Now, mind you, year on year we have seen that the supply situation by the end of the year there is a spillover, and almost 25 to 30% of the supply that needs to come into the market spills over into the next year. Having said that, coming back to, let's say, tier 1 cities like Delhi, Gurgaon, or for that matter Mumbai, the kind of supply Mumbai is currently staring at, I would use the word staring because the overhang supply and the supply for this year amounts to a total of 22 to 25 million square feet. Now that is staggering. When we drill down into Mumbai, we must understand that the micro markets in Mumbai behave differently. We have corporate offices which prefer and now are seeing a lot of relocation from Nariman Point or South Mumbai into markets such as Lower Parel or, for that matter, Bandra Kurla complex. Andheri and Lower Parel are one of the larger supply markets. The vacancy rates in these markets are almost double digits, towards 20%, some of them 18 to 20%. Now that is huge. We will see prices remain soft in particularly these micro markets. Again, when we talk about certain opportunities in Mumbai, Bandra Kurla complex, which is now gaining to be the new CBD, has seen a lot of relocations from multinational corporates such as Standard Chartered Bank, Citibank, and many others who are making Bandra Kurla complex thrive. We're seeing the social infrastructure go up there significantly.
So does that remain your best market, Bandra Kurla and Goregaon?
Yeah, Bandra Kurla, Goregaon in Mumbai are the best markets. We are seeing Powai also shaping pretty well on the charts with just 4% vacancy, which is almost similar to Bandra Kurla complex. Gurgaon is shaping up pretty well with almost 8 to 9 million square feet of supply and an equivalent demand sometimes. Gurgaon is seeing huge pent-up demand and I think some of the insurance majors and some of the major corporations there are looking at huge consolidation. We're seeing industries such as pharmaceutical and automobiles, particularly automobiles in Pune as well as Mumbai, take huge office space. So overall, I think the demand is quite robust, but supply overhangs are the ones which will play spoil sport, and therefore I call the market stable, and I don't see a real run-up except for these 3 or 4 pockets which we discussed.
All right, so that's the overall picture of Indian market. Most markets will remain stable. Shailendra, within Hyderabad, give us very quickly two particular areas for commercial real estate which you think are a sure shot winners. Rental yields, yes, but even capital appreciation there could be at least 10% plus.
I think, for now, one should look at the Gachibowli, which is the growth corridor, Gachibowli, high-tech city areas, for commercial office space. The capital values are low, the lease values are low, and the other area that one can look at is towards Uppal and Pocharam, because these are growing slow and steady. I mean, it's the second IT corridor in Hyderabad, and in the last 2 years we've seen large corporates setting up shop in Pocharam and Uppal. So I think Gachibowli and Uppal Pocharam are two locations one can look at depending on the pocket.
Okay. All right. I'm also going to very closely look at some of the other schemes which are being offered, which actually lure retail investors into getting into commercial real estate. Cash crunch developers offer assured rentals in the range of 6 to 12% of the property value. That's annually plus free maintenance. The trend was earlier limited to commercial projects and small developers, but now it's increasingly being used by big developers as well. So we've had this discussion before, Sameer, that these are clearly some things that you have to get into with a lot of caution, because the developer has to be extremely cash strapped to offer something like this, isn't it?
Well, he doesn't necessarily have to be cash strapped, but what he typically does is that he predicts the market as we stand today, because the commercial real estate is not built out. So in order to get the customer in, he assures him a 12% return, whereas commercial real estate typically gets sold between 9 to 10%. His thought process is that by the time the commercial asset gets built out, the rental yields will increase and the rental yield effectively to the customer will be 12%. But in most cases that doesn't really happen.
Right.
And the customer ends up with either no tenant or in some cases a return of 6 to 7%, because that time the developer is really desperate to be able to fulfill his building up with tenants so that he gets some exit, because he has to assure those rentals for the first 3 years. But typically over a 7 to 8 year period, after the first lease assurance ends, the rental yield can fall down to 6 to 8% or almost 0%.
My gosh. Okay, Chirag, final word from you. So panelists saying that some markets looking soft, but overall the commercial real estate market looking stable. Sameer saying be very careful of getting into these assured guaranteed returns offers from developers. Do you think that, you know, let's just put it this way, if I had 2 to 3 crores to invest, do you think commercial real estate makes sense for me?
Let me put it this way, and just taking a cue from what Sameer said earlier. Commercial real estate is not for everybody. It is somebody who's already bought 2, 3, 4 flats. He's doing his 4th or 5th investment in this asset class. So it is not for the novice who's just bought his first house and is trying to buy a second house. It is a lot of risk-adjusted return that one needs to look at. There are too many moving parts in commercial real estate. So by just going in for structured deals with developers, being a developer myself, at the risk of getting into trouble with my fellow friends, I don't think you should be getting into those deals. The investments are good. Mumbai is good. Delhi is good. Micro market driven. Remember, the IT industry has an inflection point. At $1, the IT industry fails. So the minute they have to pay $1 rental, they are dead. So if you're entering, so keep an eye on the rental value. Do the commercial investments. Very good. 3 crores, you'll not get anything. But if you do get it, go ahead. It's a good investment.
Okay, so what is the minimum deal size that you should look at when you look at commercial? I mean, you're sitting in Mumbai, but tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, you've already ruled out 3 crores. 10 crores?
Yeah. Mumbai, Delhi, I've ruled out 3 crores. If I'm right, Ravi will tell me that even in Bangalore, I don't think 3 crores will work. But really, it has to be 5 to 10 crores unlevered. And then only it makes sense. Now, typically, you have a lot of pool-based investments that happen. And that really makes a lot more sense. The bankers are doing a better job. As much as I hate to say it, they are doing a better job in doing the PMS schemes and getting the right rate from the developer. They're also exposed to the entire market. They're able to understand it better. You have to be careful of the commercial overhang. So we can all say that, yes, we are in Mumbai, so we know how it works. There's been a structural change. Lower Parel BKC is happening. I'm very happy. I'm building the largest park in BKC. So that bet has paid off.
Okay.
But,
so a lot of caution there, but very well put. I mean, that's all I can say, Chirag. Very well summed up this debate that, yes, I mean, commercial real estate makes sense, but there's a lot of paperwork involved in it. There are a lot of intricacies involved in understanding that market. And you only get into commercial real estate investing once you've invested already in 3 to 4 houses. You probably have investable surplus of 5 to 10 crores unlevered, which means not on debt or a loan from a bank, but your own personal kitty. Till you reach that size, I think stick to residential. That's a very clear message coming from this entire debate. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining me on the show today. And to all of you as well, thanks for joining us. If you have any more questions on investing in residential or commercial real estate, do write into us at property@ndtv.com or call us at the numbers on your screen. Also, send us your feedback and opinion. Twitter, NDTV Property, that's our place, is where we will be happy to get to know your thoughts as well. Goodbye and see you again next week.